Welcome to the Relevance Report, where we explore the relevant stories that are shaping our world today. I'm Bhavya Singh, your host this week. On today's show, gaming culture is on the rise, but does everyone feel welcome? Next, what's old is new again. Gen Z is returning to analogue. And then, we explored the underground zine scene. How has the concert culture changed over the years? And finally, we hear how a good game can change lives. Online gaming is known for its toxic culture. Misogyny, racism, and hate speech are incredibly common issues. Despite efforts to moderate chat, enforce ban, or impose penalties, the bad behavior continues. Elizabeth Mussel discusses where this toxic culture came from, who it affects, and how it can be changed. And just a warning, this segment contains mentions of suicide and harassment. Please listen with care.
Toxic gaming culture has been shown many times to come from the top down. This is especially the case with examples like Blizzard's discrimination and harassment lawsuit in 2021 and the Riot Games lawsuit of the same nature in 2018. Women in these workplaces were subject to unwanted sexual comments from male coworkers and supervisors, paid less than their male counterparts, and in one instance, were victim to their intimate photos being leaked to the office by male colleagues. That victim later died by suicide. These actions do not go unnoticed by communities. The normalization of toxic behavior has been shown to be reflected in player communities, and a lack of justice for victims communicates that these behaviors are acceptable. The realm of video games has historically been associated with being by men and for men, despite a consistent female presence, and a culture of toxic masculinity has proliferated as a result of trying to uphold that belief. Those that do not fit the white, heterosexual male description are thus targeted for simply existing. The video game industry has historically been scrutinized for its lack of ethnic diversity in development teams and upper management, which in turn has affected how games are being made. For example, character makers have historically failed to include a realistically diverse selection of skin tones, facial characteristics, and hairstyles, and many games have stereotyped their characters of color. This exclusion implicitly communicates to many players of color, "This game wasn't made for you," and this is upheld by other players. Many gamers of color have claimed to be victims of racially charged comments and other forms of harassment, and withdrawn from the community as a result. This is not to say that the character makers are the cause of these behaviors, rather, it is a symptom of a larger problem. Inclusion within development teams could enhance the quality of many game elements and help welcome back these ostracized players. Roughly 46% of gamers worldwide are women, according to the Entertainment Software Association. That is about 1 billion women gamers. Despite being nearly half of the gaming population, women are still more likely to be targets of harassment. Nearly 60% of women who game online have experienced some form of gender-based harassment. Both women and gamers of color often avoid using identifying tools in-game, such as voice chat. In one study, 74% of players reported that they hide their identity as a result of past harassment. Women are also much more likely to receive scrutiny for playing well compared to men, and are often accused of having someone else play for them. For example, in 2016, professional Overwatch player Gegari was forced to publicly prove that she was not a man pretending to be a woman and not cheating, because many men deemed her skill level impossible. During this time, she was only in high school. The hostile reactions towards women and people of color in gaming spaces are cause for concern. The innumerable instances of toxic gaming behavior, such as gender-based harassment, the use of slurs, and doxing, show a concerning trend of white supremacy and hate speech proliferating in online gaming communities. These toxic environments can make it challenging to maintain loyalty to the game and the developing studio, especially when there is little to no justice for victims. In a reality where video games are the number one form of entertainment, with an average of nearly $200 billion spent worldwide, the industry not just has a moral incentive, but a financial incentive to diversify and attract more players by encouraging positive play and addressing their cultural issue at the source.
Many of us are glued to our phones, but there's a quiet shift towards returning to analog. From flip phones to vinyl records, some people are choosing single-purpose tools over screens with endless distractions. Contributing editor Mary Stella Mukumbu talks about the reasons behind this anti-technology shift.
use our phones very often. If you're between 18 and 24 in Canada, chances are your phone is never more than a few feet away. Statistics Canada published in a study about the relationship between technology use, mental health, and interpersonal relationships, and they found out that 88% of people aged between 15 and 24 years old use their phones a lot, as in checking their phones at least once per hour. But at the same time, a global polling from Ipsos shows that more and more people are feeling overwhelmed by information and are starting to quietly push back on technology, especially now with the rise of AI usage. This digital and tech fatigue has been leading to a rising trend in digital detox. A recent generational study on digital detox from SAGO found that roughly 75% of Gen Z actively track their screen time and know they need help in managing their time, even though it's hard, especially with apps like TikTok and even Instagram, because those apps are designed for users to stay on them for as long as possible. So one of the ways people are choosing to reduce their screen time to simplify their lives is by getting a phone that has one purpose, and that is to just be a phone. And according to ASIO, towards the end of 2025, searches for basic flip phones have increased, especially among Gen Z. With a smartphone, you're carrying a phone, an alarm clock, a camera, a notebook, a bookstore, a TV, a mailbox, and basically a computer in your pocket. With a flip phone, or also called a dumb phone, you have a phone that you use to call and to text. You don't have to worry about so many functions and too many temptations. According to an article by Nisha Patel, a CBC contributor, some Canadian parents are buying flip phones for their kids to keep the internet out of their pockets. And young adults who have returned to a flip phone say, quote, they feel calmer when their phone can't ping them every few seconds, end quote. And this shift back to analog is not just for phones. Getting physical alarm clocks, buying hardcover physical books, even though an audiobook or an ebook costs us less than a coffee, and even for music, getting an MP3 player or a record player, because with an alarm clock, you are less likely to spend your first minutes of your morning scrolling through the notifications you missed from X or Reddit or TikTok or YouTube. And audiobooks can be less engaging than physical books because you can control the speed at which the person is speaking, making it more faster. And sometimes your brain kind of tunes out if you're listening to one while walking or cleaning. This shift back to physical, tangible items can be seen right here in Edmonton. The Edmonton Public Library launched a vinyl record collection and even lends out turntables, including albums from local artists. And you can check out a record player the same way you check out a book. And groups like Edmonton's Dead Vinyl Society, which describes itself as Edmonton's biggest vinyl community, hosts record swap events for record collectors and DJs. So while it doesn't seem like the internet and technology is going away anytime soon, many are choosing to return to traditional forms of media and tangible items to deconnect with their devices and reconnect with others or themselves.
Self-expression takes many forms, from painting to writing to whatever the creative mind can think of. But one particular art form captures the attention and awe of Anna Kampmans. Zines are small DIY publications made for the purpose of self-expression. Let's take a glimpse into Edmonton's expanding zine culture.
The zine community in Edmonton is on the rise. There are at least 3 new zines in Edmonton already this year. Before we get into the details, what is a zine? For those of you who may not know, a zine is essentially a DIY magazine made for the purposes of self-expression rather than profit. Zines are handmade, cheap, and purposefully accessible. They are traditionally printed, but as we live in a digital age, zines are also available online. You may have seen zines before in the MacEwan Library, where you are welcome to grab one and read it yourself. Other places you can find zines in Edmonton include Audrey's Books, Free Cloud Records, Magpie Books, and Paper Birch Books, among others. If you like to go to local hardcore shows, you might get lucky and find zines for sale there as well. the hardcore scene is actually where I've seen the biggest growth of zines. The Poison Noise released their first issue in December of 2025, which included a mini interview with Edmonton hardcore band False Body. The interview discusses how and why False Body formed and what they love about Edmonton. Forever in Flux dropped their first issue partway through January. The zine features a compilation of thought pieces as well as an interview with Edmonton pop rock band Panic Pixie. In the interview, Panic Pixie discusses how they formed, their favorite releases as a band, and go-to snacks and refreshments to refuel after a gig. How fun. Dead End Zine and Drastic Measure are two more Edmonton zines that are new this year. Zine and Herd and Hungry Zine are two of Edmonton's larger and more prevalent zines that are still active going into the new year. January 2026 held the release of the 35th issue of Zine and Herd. All of this new excitement around zines begs the question, why now? What is happening in Edmonton right now that has sparked the creation of all these publications? To answer that question, it is important to remember why zines exist in the first place, as an affordable outlet for self-expression. With the ongoing affordability crisis causing stress levels to rise, zines are an accessible way to de-stress and share your creativity with the people in your community. I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of 2026 will bring for Edmonton's zine community, and I'm optimistic that these smaller publications will continue to grow this year.
Concert culture has shifted from buying tickets to audience behavior. What was once about easy access and shared enjoyment is now shaped by online queues, resale prices, and digital hype. Concerts have become more aesthetic experiences than musical ones. So, does just being there now matter more than the music itself? I take a deeper look. Concerts used to feel simple. You bought a ticket, showed up, and spent a few hours immersed in music alongside people who love the same artist as you. It was about sound, energy, and the feeling of being part of something collective. But today, concert culture looks very different, and that change often begins long before the lights even go down. The first shift happens before fans even enter the venue. Getting concert tickets has become a competition in itself. Online queues, pre-sales, and bots mean tickets can sell out within minutes. Prices surge almost instantly, and those who miss out are often pushed towards resale platforms, where inflated prices and scammers take advantage of desperation. And what was once exciting now feels stressful and exclusive, and looking back on the memory is just pure trauma. For many students and young fans, access to live music increasingly depends on money, timing, and luck. And that raises a bigger question: who gets left out of the concert culture now? Concerts were once one of the few cultural spaces that felt widely accessible. Today, rising costs quietly decide who gets to be in the room and who gets to be not in the room. And once inside the venue, competitive feeling doesn't really disappear. It just changes its form. Concerts have increasingly become about image. Phones rise out immediately, not to just capture a memory, but to document proof of attendance. Being there is no longer enough. The experience has to be recorded, posted, and shared. In that sense, concerts have shifted from spaces of entertainment to spaces of performance. Social media, it plays a major role in this transformation. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, it rewards aesthetics and viral moments. Fans aren't just watching the artist, they're thinking about camera angles, lighting, and the captions that they're going to use later on. And sometimes I myself catch myself wondering how much of a concert I remember versus how much of it I only remember through the videos on my phone. And this shift feels especially noticeable now in a post-pandemic world. After years of isolation, concerts returned as places of release and connection. But instead of letting go, many of us came back holding our phones tighter, afraid to miss the moment or just for the proof of it. That being said, modern concert culture isn't negative. There's a brighter side. The communities today are more creative and connected than ever. Friendship bracelets, coordinated fan projects, and tradition, they create real moments of joy. Strangers connect over shared lyrics, inside jokes, and that sense of belonging can be genuinely powerful. Still, something has shifted. When concerts become more about being seen than listening, then the experience changes. The music trends become secondary to the content it produces. Even artists have commented on what it feels like to perform for a sea full of phones. But at the same time, concerts have become massive cultural and economic events. Artists like Taylor Swift have demonstrated just how powerful tours can be. They boost tourism and they support local business and even helping local economies recover. So, concert culture today is complicated. It's bigger, louder, and more connected, and more creative than before. but it's also more expensive, more competitive, and more performative. And the question isn't whether the concert culture has changed, because it clearly has. The real question is whether in a world that values proof over presence, we can still choose how we show up. Whether we can sometimes put our phones down, look up at the stage, and remember that concerts were never meant to be symbols. They were meant to be shared moments of joy. And if things keep changing at this pace, will there be a time when concerts in the near future will no longer leave us with any physical memories or mental memories at all? The mobile game Bang Dream Girls Band Party has changed people's life. That was the case for Uziel Divinagrasha. It helped him find himself and overcome challenges during his youth. Here's Uziel about why representation matters in gaming.
I've always loved Garupa. For those who don't know what that is, it's a multimedia series focusing on girls' bands. It's shorthand for Girls Band Party, as the main franchise is called Bang Dream. Basically, it means reach for your dreams. I think it's a lovely message and something that a lot of teenagers need to hear. It can be stressful to live in such a volatile time in your life where we have to worry about getting into high school, relationships, and college is 3 years away, and I might need a job, and taxes, and I might live alone. It's way too much for a 15-year-old to comprehend. I barely gained consciousness when I was 8. I basically lived less than a decade. And then suddenly, these new foreign concepts are just pushed to me. And I'm expected to get it in 3 years. And that's scary. But Garupa had stories of these same teenagers, but they weren't stressed. In fact, it was the opposite. They were living their best life. They pursued music, and they had a blast doing it. They formed deep, everlasting friendships and bonds with each other, and it was so inspiring to see. Yeah, the real world is stressful, but there's still good and fun things out there. It's easy to forget that when the real world is so suffocating. So imagine my surprise when I saw Bandori tell the stories of kids who are exactly like that. I was so happy to welcome Maigo and Ave Mujica into the Bandori franchise because the stories they tell are not the typical feel-good formula that Garupa normally does. Maigo explored the feelings of being lonely and the ever so painful realization that you may not be human, as they did with the main character, Tomori Takamatsu. Can someone who's so out of step with everyone else truly live in this world? Or how Mutsumi Wakaba from Ave Mujica explored mental disorders in an incredibly respectful and humanizing way that frames why it's so scary, but also just as human. Mental disorders like DID can be a part of someone that isn't who they are as a whole. I'll always be grateful for Garupa's lighthearted nature, but the fact that they were willing to tell stories that don't normally be told was welcoming. It made me feel seen. I didn't particularly have the best teenage years. I struggled with my identity and I realized teenagers can be really mean, especially to minorities. It was hard to pretend to like hating on gay people like everyone else just to fit in. And I was also autistic, so I often made social blunders, and it was always a struggle to fix those blunders. I had to say things like, "Of course, I get the joke, I was just playing stupid," and "Gay people are so weird, who would live like that?" When COVID came and everything was online and nothing in person, I had realized I never truly made any connections with anyone from high school or even junior high. I cannot tell you a single person that I still talk to that I went to high school or junior high with me. And that's really lonely. During 2023, when Mygo was airing, I had found it, and in fact, it motivated me to go to college. I saw stories of people who faced something similar to me, and they found a way forward. Maybe they hadn't found the final answer, but, well, life isn't that easy. And I am happy that a story like that existed. I love Bandori, I love Garupa, and I am certainly going to love our notes.
Thanks for joining us for the Relevance Report. This week's episode was produced by Elizabeth Massel, Mary Stella Mukumbu, Anna Campmans, Uziel Divinagrasha, and me, Bhavya Singh. The show was edited by Elizabeth Massel. The show's supervising producer is Sheena Rossiter. Additional studio supervision by Sasha Stanojevic. This episode was produced as the part of BCSC 206, Introduction to Audio and Video course in the winter 2026 semester. The course is a part of the Bachelor of Communication Studies program in the Department of Communication at McEwan University. The show was edited and produced out of McEwan Media Production Studio. Our theme music is called Buzzing by Kaylee Lambert. The other music is Spunk Music, No Copyright by Poor Artist, Cinematic Documentary by Lexin Music, Touch of Time by Alex Kroll, Epic by Cornv Music, all from Pixabay, and Call on the Phone, Swamp, and What is Life Like for Planarian, all by Nabunko on Bandcamp. Logo design for this podcast is by Sasha Stanojevic. And I'm Bhavya Singh, your host for this week's episode. This podcast was recorded on the Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis settlement and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 9, 10, and 11 within the historical North Saskatchewan River Territory. Don't forget to subscribe to the Relevance Report on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review and rating. It really helps people find the show. Please join us again next week when we report the relevant stories that are shaping our world.